Welcome, Canada, and of course our friends at whatever law firm hired by whatever front group of the Muslim Brotherhood is trying to sue me at whatever point in the space-time continuum. You are trying to sue me. It's Uninterrupted, and we've got a great show for you tonight. So, we're going to get into all the voter fraud, election fallout, nonsense, non-nonsense, all that. We got a great Remembrance Day segment. But first, the top story in Canada, which is not even a story on most mainstream media outlets, is the fact that documents from the We Charity scandal have been destroyed. Documents that were legally ordered by the committee have been destroyed. Now, what's going to happen to this? Is he guilty? Of course he's guilty of an ethics violation. This is the most clear ethics violation you've ever seen. Like, when you think of political corruption, this is sort of what the We scandal is. It's exactly what you think of when you think of political corruption. We'll get into it in a second. But here you have documents that were legally ordered. They didn't want to give them to the committee. And these documents pertained to the speaker's fees paid to the Trudeau family, which I go ballistic over because we're going to get into his brother Alexandre or Sacha Trudeau in just a second. They were destroyed. But before, the committee kept trying to, the speaker's going to try and delay giving the documents to the committee. Things of it were redacted. They even prorogued Parliament. They just Trudeau shut down Parliament for a month to delay this. Then he comes back, then they ask for more delays. They're granted time by the committee, and then before they're set to be delivered, oops, we burned them. Oopsie doodles, we just burned them and shredded them, and now no one can ever look at them. For the Canadian media, which spends so much time in Trump moral panic, of how he's, a dictator, he's destroying democracy, Russia, even Ukraine. And we all know that Biden was clearly more guilty on Ukraine, which is why they never brought up the Ukraine stuff in the middle of once Biden won the Democratic nomination. But for the Canadian media to say almost nothing about this. Remember, I watched the CBC, so you don't have to. I watched a whole hour of the CBC the day after it broke on the National. Do you want to guess on how many seconds were devoted to this development? If you guessed 0, you would be correct. 0 seconds devoted to the fact that the Liberals destroyed documents that were legally ordered pertaining to an investigation against them. Now, if you need a background of what we are talking about here, the We Charity scandal. We Charity is formerly Free the Children, but now they're more of a cult / slush fund for the Liberal government. So, what people tend to like about Trump is the fact that he was a billionaire going in. Part of the reason he won in 2016, Russian Facebook bots. No. Part of the reason he won is because he went up there on the stage and said, listen, I'm a billionaire, I could buy all of you. I've bought some of you before, right? No one can buy me because I have lots of money. And then he gave his salary to charity, right? Trump's net worth went down after entering office. Somehow, Barack Obama, a public servant for life, is able to buy a $10 million mansion in Martha's Vineyard. Now, that can be explained because honestly, you become president, you're super famous, half the country will love you, write a book after you leave office, it will sell, like Bernie Sanders being a millionaire. He ran for president saying, everything must be free. I have this new idea. It's called Everything Must Be Free. And I give you this for free, and I give you that for free, and if it's not free, it's racism or discrimination or something, where am I? Right? And part of the country, part of the world, every time you say everything should be free, they're like, oh my God, this is so revolutionary. Why has no one ever thought of just printing tons of money and giving everything away for free? And then why do we even need, farmers and people producing things when we could just all have money instead of services, right? And what a fascinating idea. It's like, well, every time that's been tried in the last 150 years, it results in mass death. But Bernie Sanders did the whole everything must be free, I'm the best, everything must be free, abolish prisons, abolish this. And then he wrote a book. And a lot of people bought it like, oh, what does Bernie Sanders have to say about this? Healthcare, free. Education, free. Food, free. This book, you have to pay for this book. Everything except this book, free. Right? So Bernie Sanders wrote the everything must be free except this book, right? Good for him, he's a millionaire. America's a great place where even the socialists in America can own 3 to 4 different houses. But we have Canada. Let's scale it back to the We Charity scandal. So what people generally think of politicians is they get richer in office, and there are legitimate ways to do it, right? You go, you have your career. Once you're done your career, you write your book, you get money off your book, and then you're rich. Fine, okay? You know, you do your speaking fees, fine. You're Hillary Clinton, you go to talk to Wall Street, they give you $500,000 for 15 minutes of your time. Unethical, fine. Legal, sure, okay? How did Justin Trudeau enrich himself? So Justin Trudeau basically turned We Charity into a political slush fund. And what the We Charity was is they'd be getting, there was almost $1 billion. So they were given $900 million by the Liberal government. There was no competing grants, and this was to administer a student jobs program where they'd be paid below minimum wage. And you know, even at the bit, like it was like, I think it was tabulated, it was like 50 million of the $90 million was accounted for in, you know, just by paying these students. But we're going to pay the We Charity $900 million. So that's sort of corruption. Like, why are they overpaying for this? And then the real scandal is, oh, they were overpaying, and the We Charity did two things illegally. One, they were making propaganda videos for the Trudeau government. You can't do that as a charity. Now, I'm not going to relitigate all my opinions on, you know, who should be, like, I have completely different opinions than everyone else, I guess, in the Canadian government over how we should structure sort of election funding and electoral ad laws. I think they're all silly. I think there's too much moral panic over money in politics. I don't think it's as, I just don't think money in politics affects politics as much as people think it does. But you still can't do that, okay? You can't have laws that basically bar every other type of funding and then use this as a backdoor to create ads. Like that's, so yes, I still have a problem with this because they're circumventing the different things. So they destroyed these documents that might have alleged funding of Trudeau's. So this is the second part. So you have the illegal funds, the illegal advertising done on behalf of the Liberal Party. So basically, they are paying lots for advertising and circumventing the laws, which I think are stupid laws, but they're still breaking them. The second thing they did is they were using it as the slush fund. So this is what you think of when you think of political corruption. It's the We Charity scandal, right? SNC-Lavalin, I will give it, was a bit more complicated, way worse, but a bit more complicated. We Charity is pretty simple. Liberals give way too much money to an organization, a charity. They then work on behalf, pushing their narrative. They then funnel in speakers' fees money to all the Liberals and politicians who awarded them such exorbitant fees to begin with, right? This is what people think of when they think of political corruption. This is illegitimate wealth gain through office, right? There's legitimate ways to do it, right? Once you leave office, write your book, right? Trudeau can write the, when Trudeau's done in being prime minister, you can write the book. Justin Trudeau, steel tariffs, drink box, water bottle type sort of thingies, right? The Justin Trudeau story. Write that book, right? You can read the book, you know, it'll be ghostwritten by probably someone who speaks the English language, whoop-de-doo. But you cannot use government funds, funnel them to a charity, then have them funneled back towards you and your family. So the documents pertaining to the fees paid to the Trudeau family specifically were destroyed. And I've said this a lot, okay? Trudeau's mother, I would never pay her to speak. I don't think she's the most brilliant mind out there, but she's a name in Canada, and she has a story, and she's publicly struggled with mental illness. There's an excuse you can give to bringing Margaret Trudeau to speak to kids. I don't buy it. I wouldn't send my kids, but there's a thin veneer in which it can be acceptable. Okay. You know who's not qualified to speak to kids? Sacha Trudeau, advisor to Justin Trudeau, or Alexander Trudeau as he's known. Now, I don't think we should hold people accountable for their family's opinions, okay? Obviously, I believe that. I mean, Erin O'Toole's campaign team is suing my family for things I said. I don't know why, but, you know, I think it's a pretty horrendous thing to do. Now, it would be more legitimate if one of my family members was listed as my chief advisor, right? Like Justin Trudeau's brother is his advisor, one of his advisors. So what does Alexander Trudeau have to offer to the children? What did he do before he became into political office? Even his mother describes him as a bit of a radical, all right? So his last job was a propagandist. For who, you may ask? Who was employing Sacha Trudeau? Well, Press TV, that is the English language propaganda network of the Islamic Republic of Iran, one of the most brutal and oppressive regimes to ever exist. It's like if 1984 and ISIS had a baby, you get the Ayatollah Khomeini and Khomeini. Sorry, actually, you know what, not so Ayatollah. You're both ugly and you smell bad. But, so, fun fact of the Islamic Republic, friend of mine I have friends who have spent time in jail in Iran for protesting and forming a student union. My friend once, his cellmate in Iran was a 16-year-old boy on death row for being a Baha'i 3 times. He was convicted 3 times of being a Baha'i. So apartheid, Israeli apartheid in Iran, like it's literally a crime to be a Baha'i. But this is the regime that Sacha Trudeau worked for as a propagandist, making English language documentaries. One documentary made for Press TV was an anti-Israel one, basically, typical historical revisionism, omitting facts, Jews bad, Palestinians amazing, blah, blah, blah. The second one was advocating for nuclear weapons for Iran. Why can't Iran have nukes? The reason why Iran cannot have nukes is because publicly they declare what they will do with the nukes is use them to destroy the free countries in the world. They will bomb Israel, they will bomb America, and they want world domination, according to their own thing, okay? The reason why the Quds Force, the international arm of the IRGC, is declared a terrorist organization, even in Canada, is because in its mandate, they call themselves terrorists. They say their job, world domination, create a global caliphate, run on Sharia law as dictated by the Ayatollah. Right? And the way they do this is they will sponsor terrorist groups, or they call them cells of resistance, in their friggin' charter, guys. Right? They will sponsor cells of resistance. Right? This is basically anywhere in the world they see Shiites gathering in numbers, they will sort of give them weapons and training and radicalize them, throw in foreign soldiers, whatever, sort of create some sort of insurrectionist coup, terrorist operations, and then use them as political bargaining chips to further their power. This is the regime that Sacha Trudeau worked for. Also Jeremy Corbyn. Now, fun fact, Press TV was banned in the UK because they were caught airing the forced and coerced confessions of tortured political prisoners. That's right. They would torture people who were, like, say, we should have freedom. They torture them, and they bring them, like, black and bruised and, like, gaunt looking onto Press TV. And, with a gun to their head and, their family in jail, they'd say, I'm sorry, I am guilty of asking for freedom in Iran. I should never have done it. The Ayatollah is the greatest. And then these people would disappear a few months later. They were dead. They're dead. This is where Sacha Trudeau worked for. So why was he teaching the kids? Like, the We Charity was giving this man, a man who worked for a regime, worked for a company that was connected to a regime that tortured people and put their confessions on video, murders children for being Baha'i, and wants to nuke the world. Which one of these values best appeals to the Canadian youth, in your opinion? Nuking the world? Jews bad? Murdering Baha'i people? Freedom of speech bad? Well, I guess that's kind of what's being taught in Canadian schools anyway. But what? Why was Trudeau's brother paid speaking fees? We'll never know, because they destroyed the documents. Which brings us to another point here. What's the worst that can happen to Trudeau? A $500 fine? So Bill Morneau go. Bill Morneau, oh, I just forgot to pay back the $41,000 We Charity gave me. Haha, yes, it's just $41,000. Who could keep track of that? Man of the people. That Bill Morneau. So, the documents were destroyed. Clearly there's an ethics violation even before that. What are the consequences? We need to be able to throw politicians in jail. I'm sorry, like this is such obvious corruption. How could this not be illegal? Now, let me spoil this for you. Next, you're going to find out that yes, Justin Trudeau was guilty of an ethics violation on the We Charity scandal, and he'll get a boop, and then a little tap on the wrist, then a little kiss it better. Maybe a $300 to $500 fine. I think Justin Trudeau might have to pay $300 to $500 for taking like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions in bribes. But we'll hit him with that $300 fine. So, watch out! Don't do that again. Right? We in Canada need to make it that there's actual criminal repercussions to your actions in Parliament. Because as long as there's literally no repercussions to your actions in Parliament, Why? Why would they ever stop? Like, there's literally no consequences to their actions. Literally none. And you know what I want for consequences of their actions? Like, you know what I'd settle for in jail? I would just settle for this being 15 minutes on the news cycle for a whole week, like it should be. Just pretend that Donald Trump did this. Pretend for a second that Donald Trump used federal funds to fund a charity that was making advertisements promoting Donald Trump, making Donald Trump videos, showing them to kids, sending them hundreds of millions of dollars. They then sent speaking fees to Jared, Ivanka, Eric, and Donald Trump Jr. They were siphoning up millions of this. And then all the documents pertaining to this illegal activity were legally ordered by the House Democrats and then destroyed by Donald Trump. Just pretend that's the story. Just pretend. I don't care. Just say Donald Trump too. Just run the story as Donald Trump did this. We can all freak out about Trump, and then they'd be like, oh, actually, it was Justin Trudeau. Actually, it was Justin Trudeau. So everyone in Canada who's talking about Donald Trump's corruption, shut up. Just shut up. Shut up. I don't care. What did he do? Name his crime. My stupid, even the reasonable people in my family. Oh, do you think Donald Trump's gonna resign, make Mike Pence will become president for a bit, and then he'll pardon Donald Trump? I think that's gonna happen. I really think it's gonna happen. What crime? Pardon him for what crime? What crime? Name the crime. Name it. Name it. I'm going crazy. I'm going literally insane. What's the crime? What crime did Donald Trump commit? Name it. Fraud? Where? Right? Abuse of power? Murder? What did he do? What did he do? Name the crime. Name it. Drive me crazy. Oh, I love Justin Trudeau. Love him. Love him. Love him. Hillary Clinton is the most smart and precious and beautiful person out there. And Chrystia Freeland is a genius. Nancy Pelosi has had no plastic surgery. She's just a natural beauty. I'm trying to say all this to bypass the fact checkers. And it is my personal belief that communism has never been tried. And if we do try it, it would work great. Let's just start printing money. Hallelujah. Speaking of the fact checking of the election, the big story in the United States is Vice President-elect Joe Biden, what do we call him? Now, for the fact checkers out there, technically, Joe Biden is not president-elect because the media doesn't get to call elections. There's still a legal challenge in the process, and Trump has not conceded. So anyone who calls Joe Biden president-elect should be fact-checked by the Facebook fact checkers. But they're not being fact-checked. No, they're not being fact-checked. How strange that is. But you know who is being fact-checked? Project Veritas. And anyone who's, showing videos of actual election fraud. Now, I'm going to give it to you straight. Odds are Trump's not going to win these legal challenges, okay? I wish he would. I'm going to explain why a Joe Biden presidency could be cataclysmic for global stability. I hope Trump prevails, but I don't think it is likely. However, Joe Biden currently is not president-elect. He's still Vice President Biden. But you know who's getting fact-checked? Project Veritas. So I'm going to set up this video that we're about to see, because this is Project Veritas whistleblower from the UPS Postal Service in Pennsylvania. And one of the things they did, and one of the fact checks, is the Washington Post ran a story that this whistleblower actually recanted his story, that the whole Project Veritas thing was fake, and this guy recanted the story. Now, Project Veritas has videos and evidence saying, no, he never recanted. But here, I'm going to show you a video of the whistleblower talking about the Washington Post, saying, no, I never retracted. And as far as I know, the Washington Post story has not been retracted yet and has not been fact-checked. Let's roll the tape.
My name is Richard Hopkins. I am the postal employee who came out and whistle blew on the Erie, PA Postal Service, postal office. I am, right at this very moment, looking at an article written by Washington Post. It says that I fabricated the allegations of ballot tampering. I'm here to say that I did not recant my statements. That did not happen. That is not what happened. And you will find out tomorrow. And I would like that the Washington Post recant their wonderful little article that they decided to throw out there out of random.
So will the Washington Post Facebook page, Twitter feed be hit with a fact check? Be hit with a restriction use? You shared fake news? Clearly that was a lie. They lied. They said this man retracted his story. He said he did not retract his story. I've also seen the Project Veritas tapes. I suggest you follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and whatever. They have tapes of the whistleblower being interrogated and coerced into changing his story by federal agents. Now, maybe this guy is lying. Maybe his affidavit is false. Maybe he's a Trump supporter just looking for his 15 minutes of fame. Maybe. Maybe, we don't know. We can settle this in court. But what is fake news? What is definitively 100% maliciously created fake news is the Washington Post story that he recanted. And the reason I brought up that specific video, not the other ones, because, that's a lie from the Washington Post. They lied. There's video evidence. He did not recant. They said he recanted. He said he did not recant. Therefore, he did not recant. Washington Post hasn't taken it down, right? And they have not been hit with a fact check like I have for even just saying, I've been hit with fact checks for sharing stories saying nothing official yet, but here's what people are saying about stuff in Wisconsin. Fact check. It's like, well, yeah, I preface this with everyone hold your horses and don't hold out, but look at this. More to come later. Still fact checked. Daniel's fake news. Fake news, dark web Daniel. Back at it again. So, we have a threat to democracy called Donald Trump and Russiagate, okay? Do you remember Russiagate? There was a theory, some say a conspiracy theory, that the 2016 election was invalid because of Russiagate. Now, people just said Russia, 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 and it was never really explained. Now, I usually say that they usually explain the conservative controversies in detail so people understand them and get more angry with them, like in SNC-Lavalin, how they didn't explain the liberal scandal there because they didn't want people to understand it. They wanted to portray this sort of, oh, it's too complicated for you to understand. The reason they did not ever fully explain the Russiagate scandal is because I'm going to do it for you right now. This is Russiagate, folks. In 2016, the election was stolen from the most brilliant, beautiful person ever, Hillary Clinton, who deserved to win because she was so competent and so qualified, except don't look at that email thing, but she was so competent and so qualified. And she was going to win in a landslide, wide in the battlefield. But, there was a nefarious thing at play, and that was Vladimir Putin, who didn't like Hillary because Hillary loves America, except when she entered the Iran deal and all that. But Hillary loves America more than anything, okay? And Hillary was going to win, and the only reason people didn't vote for Hillary the Magnificent is Vladimir Putin. What did he do? He created Russian Facebook bots. And these Russian Facebook bots went onto Facebook and they posted things that were against Hillary Clinton. And good, kind-hearted Americans were fooled by these Russian Facebook bots. They were ready to vote for Hillary in droves. Hillary was going to win 97% of the vote. 97% of the vote. Hillary was going to win. But then people saw these Facebook posts made by the Russians. And these Russian Facebook posts, they got into the minds of the American people and they corrupted them. And thus they voted for Donald Trump. Oh, the horror. Oh, the horror. This was actually Russiagate. This is what the Russian Facebook bots. What? Yes, this was the claim. At least Trump's claim of voter fraud make a semblance of sense. Listen, I think he'll have trouble proving it in court because there needs to be a lot of evidence. You need different states. You need Democrat judges to go along with it. But Donald Trump's claims are there were glitches in the system, right? Widespread voter fraud. So glitches in the system, people who voted for Trump, those votes were changed for Biden, or people who were dead were being enrolled to vote and there was illegally votes cast. Donald Trump's claim makes sense. Is that votes were illegally cast or votes were switched from Trump to Biden. That's how the election was interfered with. Votes were changed, therefore that's why the votes are incorrect. Hillary Clinton's claim, CNN's claim, Rachel Maddow's claim was that Russian Facebook bots made Facebook posts, and because Facebook posts made by Russians happened, somehow the election is illegitimate. Was that ever fact-checked? Ever. Even after 2017, 2018, when we had exculpatory evidence showing that no, there was no Russian collusion. None. Even after exculpatory evidence was available, never once was CNN, MSNBC, or any of these clowns ever fact-checked. And again, the Russia conspiracy is Donald Trump was elected president because the Russians made lots of Facebook posts. James Comey's testimony, even though it also provided some exculpatory evidence towards Trump, was 24-hour news, live coverage. James, there's even a friggin' TV show on HBO or Crave or Showtime or whatever it is, The Comey Rule. Jeff Daniels is James Comey, the most heroic FBI agent ever, who lied under oath and used illegally FISA warrants. Do you understand why everyone's going crazy? Do you understand why this is why we can't have nice things, okay? And my advice to the people on the left, and I say this because again, I have brilliant family members who are on the left, and I love them, okay? But I have to listen to them on Friday night dinners talk about how Trump's claims of voter fraud are undermining the American election. Suck it up, Buttercup. Suck it up. Suck it the hell up. Because, listen, I didn't like the Russia thing. I'd rather this go smoothly. I'd rather we all have faith in the institutions. But you cannot, for 4 years, 4 long years, in the face of evidence being provided that disproved your position, scream, Russia, 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 Russia. American elections had no integrity. It was hacked by the Russians. Russians make Facebook posts, and therefore the American election system is illegitimate. Trump's not my president, not my president, not my president. For 4 years, you can't play this nonsense. Your punishment for the last 4 years of your insanity, telling me that Russian Facebook posts denied Hillary Clinton the presidency, your punishment is you have to spend the next 2 months playing along with Donald Trump's court claims. That's your punishment. For the next 2 months, you have to say, hey, Donald Trump has the right to challenge these results in the court of law, right? And with multiple sworn affidavits and videos coming out that show, listen, I have seen evidence of voter fraud with my own eyes. I've seen the video where the guy looks at the vote thing, shows you it's a Trump vote, rips it up, throws it over his shoulder. So yeah, there's 3 votes right there. Probably he could have affected hundreds himself. However, that gets you to 100, right? You don't know what county he's in. If it's in Pennsylvania, he's still losing Pennsylvania for 35,000. Now, if you see like 20,000 here, dead people voted, and they can prove, okay, this, the Dominion voting system, here, here's, okay, we're recounting. We're gonna go to the cemetery, see how many dead people voted for Biden. I just saw a thing, I'm not sure if it's true, that, in one Pennsylvania county, there was 3,500 people, 90 and above, registered to vote, but there was over 11,500 people over 90 who voted, which means some of them were, right? After we go through this, right, if it gets shut down by a court of law, if the legal challenges are unsuccessful, then Joe Biden is president-elect. January 20th, Joe Biden is president. Okay? That's the deal. But if you ever said Russiagate, you talked about Trump being in bed with the Russians, you talked about the Russians influencing our election, at any point, let's say in the last 3 years, I'll give you the first year free. If any time since 2017 you pushed the Russia conspiracy nonsense in the face of countervailing evidence, when we had evidence of CNN, the Van Jones kind of, I'm like, yeah, it's a nothing burger, we're just pushing the story. If you push that conspiracy theory, you don't get to say anything until all the court cases are done. That's your punishment. That's your punishment. You just got to listen to this play out in court, and that's what you got to do. Now, as I said, do I think Donald Trump's going to come out on top here? No, I don't. I think he has to go through too many Democratic judges. I think it's an incredible burden of proof he's going to have to do. Does he have a shot? Yes. Do I hope he wins? Yes. Do I think the chances are over 10% he remains president? No. Will I be happy to be proven wrong? Yes. But that's where we are now. But is it a 0% chance? No. Is it over? No. And you can't, you can't push the Russia conspiracy thing and then say no. And also, Twitter, Facebook, Fact check the Washington Post. They just lied. I showed you the video. Showed you the video. That video, if you look at Project Veritas' Twitter, it says, like, this is disputed. And then they have a thing saying, and their disputed thing, and the reason they fact check that video is they link to a thing saying, experts say voter fraud is very rare. No, we don't have any evidence, but we just say voter fraud and election interference is very rare. Oh, really? Where was that on all the Russiagate stuff? Again, Russia. Okay. So now I want to do something and explain, and I've said a lot of this before on different videos, but I just want to, because it's becoming more and more official and scarier. This is why Joe Biden might end up destroying the world. And it has to do with re-entering the Iran deal. And a lot of his aides have started to signal that he wants to re-enter the JCPOA or the Iran deal, which could be cataclysmic. Now, I talk to a lot of left-wing people who kind of get it. Even they're Zionist, left-wing, they get it. They get the threat of Iran. And most of my left-wing family is currently thinking of, oh no, he probably won't. Who knows if he'll re-enter the Iran deal? Yeah, okay, I've convinced them it was bad by explaining to them. But he hasn't re-entered yet. He might not. He might not. He says he wants to, guys. And you might be thinking, oh, what is it? Like, this is what the show is for, explaining to you guys what foreign policy actually is and how these places work, because the CBC will never do this. CBC will lie about Iran and Iraq and everywhere in the Middle East. As we saw, decades of common sense or foreign, like decades of, what is it, common sense foreign policy or normal foreign policy have been thrown out the window to the immense benefit of the world. But you have to understand what the JCPOA or the Iran deal is. And when Trump said it's the worst deal in history, even worse than the Trojan horse, he's right. It's horrible, okay? Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, is the world's leader in state sponsors of terrorism. Again, I talked about how it says in the framework of the Quds Force, the international arm of the IRGC, their sort of terrorist organization headed up by Qasem Soleimani. Thank God Trump killed that man, because that might actually save the world long term. It says their goal is they sponsor cells of resistance worldwide. So anywhere in the world they see groups of Shiite Muslims, they will immediately throw money and weapons and try and radicalize them and turn them into terrorist cells as means of to use as political bargaining chips. It says this. They say they do this. They just, when they get Javad Zarif to lie in English to you, you don't believe them, right? And the left doesn't want to believe this to be true because they always want America to be the villain. And my main problem with the left is they don't care about the lives of brown people unless it's white people killing them. They don't care. Don't care. So don't give me this, oh, racism stuff. If Biden re-enters the Iran deal, at best case scenario, hundreds of thousands of brown people in the Middle East die in decades of war and starvation. Right? The reason why the war in Yemen kicked out is because Obama signed this brilliant Iran deal. So they had Iran under sanctions. The Islamic Republic was about to bend over. They even invented this propaganda term called heroic flexibility to explain to their people why they're giving in to the Americans. And before they could institute this, Obama took all the sanctions off, threw hundreds of billions of dollars at them, even sent a plane full of cash towards them. What happened? They did exactly what they said they're going to do, and they sponsored their cells of resistance. Terrorism in Africa, Houthis in Yemen, Hamas, Hezbollah, right? How did that giant stockpile of weapons blow up Beirut? It's all Iranian money. It's not Lebanese tax dollars that pay for that. It's the Iranian tax dollars that pay to blow up Beirut, right? Now, it gets even worse because in the JCPOA, or the Iran deal, okay, there is a stipulation. Now, the point of the Iran deal is we're going to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. Oh, Barack Obama, bringer of peace and winner of Nobel Peace Prizes. What a great gent he is. Narcissist extraordinaire. The point of the JCPOA was to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. How does the JCPOA stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons? By allowing them to have nuclear weapons. Yes, read it. Please, read. If you think I'm a crazy person, if you don't agree with me, if you think, oh, Trump's an idiot and foreign policy, please read the JCPOA. Please, I'm begging you. Read this thing and see if you still disagree with me. Okay, I'm gonna give you some spoilers. Spoiler alert. If you're gonna read it, click off the video now. Don't get your spoilers. Spoiler alert for the JCPOA. After 20 years, Iran's allowed to have a nuclear weapon. It was just 10 years, they could start ramping up nuclear production in 10 years, and then after that 10 years, and in 20 years of not having a nuke, they can then have a nuke. right? So they're allowed to not have one for 10 years, start developing it in 10 years, and then in 20 years have nukes. But wait, there's more. Turns out that American military would be contractually obligated to protect Iran's nuclear arsenal from foreign threats. That's right. If Iran builds a nuclear weapon in 20 years after the JCPOA expires, and they say, we want to use this nuclear weapon on Israel, right? And by the way, once the Iran deal was signed, outside Tehran there was a billboard with a mushroom cloud on it, with a countdown clock saying the end of Israel, and it counted down to the end of the JCPOA when they get a nuclear weapon. They're basically saying, once we're allowed to have a nuke, we're going to have that nuke, we're dropping it on Israel. So Iran can literally say, we're going to build a nuke and use it to blow up American ally Israel. And according to the JCPOA, if the Israelis try to bomb the Iranian nuclear facilities to stop them from dropping a nuke on Israel, American warplanes would have to protect Iran's nuclear facilities. Barack Obama. It's insane. That's fundamentally insane. Fundamentally insane, okay? But wait, there's more. Because again, what did Barack Obama want to do? Barack Obama wanted to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons because Barack Obama loves us so much. Oh, thank the heavens for Barack Hussein Obama, who loves America, who would never sell out the world to feed his own ego. He would make sure that the Iranians are never cheating on the deal. A hardliner, Barack Obama would. Barack Obama draws a red line in the sand. You don't cross that red line or else nothing will happen. Okay? This is Barack Obama we're talking about. Now, how does Barack Obama prevent Iran from building nuclear weapons? Well, there's weapons inspections, Iran. You can't build a nuke because we're going to send weapons inspectors. 2 fun facts about the weapons inspectors. It's not like a normal weapons inspector where they show up at a random time and check out your nuclear facilities. No, 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 no. The Iranians get to decide and get to agree to, and they have to be warned the date it's going to come. So you say, I'm coming over tomorrow. And bonus links, there are areas where the Iranians can control. They can say, you're not allowed to look. So the Iranians get to be warned on the date the weapons inspectors are coming. They get forewarning, and they get to choose certain locations where those weapons inspectors are not allowed to look. Barack Obama's Iran deal, bringer of peace, Barack Obama. Basically what Barack Obama did is he entered into a game of hide-and-go-seek to the death. Now, you know what? Let's play this game, okay? You here at home, okay? Comment below. See if you would play this game with me. It's called hide and seek to the death, and here are the rules. All right. You're going to come over, or I'm going to come over to your house. Let's say your house, all right? All right? Assuming you have more than a couple rooms in your house, okay? And then we're going to play a game of hide and go seek to the death, all right? So you give me 30 seconds to hide, all right? And I will hide. If you can find me after 1 whole day, all right, you win. And if you can't find me, I win. Now, in order to play this game, you have to give me $150 billion. Now, if I win, you die and there's a global thermonuclear war. If you win, oopsie doodles, you give me a slap on the wrist and I say my bad, but I still get the $150 billion, okay? Those are the rules. Now, one final rule, okay? I get to choose 1 room in your house where you're not allowed to look, okay? So I get to choose 1 room in your house you're not allowed to look, okay? I get a 30-second head start before you can come looking for me. And if you cannot find me, you have to pay me $150 billion and you die. Deal? We gonna play? Deal? Or are you smarter than Barack Obama? This is my problem with the left, okay? As I said, they don't care that Iran will use this money they're going to give to start wars to all the world. Be like, who the hell really cares about the Yemenis dying? Like, and let's say, oh, we care about Yemeni children. You only use that Yemeni children as a means to hammer Saudi Arabia because they're forming a Western alliance. And yeah, Saudis are monsters. And I've talked about how they clearly don't know how to conduct a ground war. Well, they can't because they're all just a bunch of airline. Saudi Arabia aside, okay? Wars will start because of this. And the Iranians are so friggin' crazy, they're going to demand reparations, right? All sanctions must be lifted, and in order to get back into the Iran deal, I guarantee you, what they're going to say to Biden, they're not just going to re-enter the Iran deal, they're going to say, you must give us money and reparations to re-enter the Iran deal, which you get nothing for. There was nothing the Americans got of the Iran deal. Nothing. Except the promise that Iran wouldn't build a nuclear weapon for 10 years and wouldn't use a nuclear weapon for 20 years. Oh, hallelujah. The events of this could be cataclysmic. Like, If Joe Biden re-enters the Iran deal under those conditions I just outlined, I would not be surprised, and I would actually support. I would not be surprised if the Saudis, the Bahrain, UAE, the Gulf states, Israel, and the coalition of not insane nations who don't want global thermonuclear war just bomb Iran. No, it would make sense if the Saudis, the Israelis, and all the Arab Gulf states say, hey, listen, if we let them get nukes, it's over. So we have to get this regime out now, or else in a decade, it's global thermonuclear war. And if I was Prime Minister of Canada, I would send Canadian warplanes to join that coalition, because if you don't stop the Iranians from building nukes, as Barack Obama and Joe Biden want to do, then you could. We're actually looking at because the Ayatollah. These are like apocalyptic genocidal Islamofascists. They believe that you can kill people and go to the afterlife. Like, they don't care about human life, okay? And Barack Obama and Joe Biden and the Democrats, like, this is pure narcissism, okay? And this is why we have to get rid of the mainstream media, because they just went along with this. Like, how could Barack Obama sleep at night after signing the Iran deal and then go around and say, I'm a bringer of peace? It was a pure narcissism. It was more narcissistic than anything Donald Trump's ever done his entire life. And I'm not a guy who will ever claim Donald Trump's not a narcissist. He's one of the biggest the world's ever seen. But nowhere near as big as Barack Obama, who signed the death warrants of hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people, who might have kicked off World War III, all to feed his ego as a peace bringer. Oh, look, I brought peace between America and Iran. Right after he signed the Iran deal, Iran was still death to America. Donald Trump actually brought peace between Israel, UAE, Bahrain. It looks like Oman, Sudan, Saudi Arabia following soon. You don't get these people, like, if you're on the left, like, you just don't understand them. And like, yeah, I gotta go a bit crazy on this, because like, they murdered 63 Canadians when they shot down the Ukrainian air flying fighter. And those were pro-regime Iranian Canadians. Like, they don't care. And whenever you give in to this regime, that's when they kill you. Like, the reason why the Iranians were terrified to murder Americans the last 4 years was because of Donald Trump. Justin Trudeau and his brother Sacha, who's a pro-Iranian activist, are very pro-Iran, and they murder Canadians because of it, because that's how these people think. And if you think of getting, like, my friend was murdered a couple of weeks ago, okay? Every couple of years in Canada, a monarchist in the Iranian-Canadian community just gets murdered. My friend Mehdi Amin was murdered, because that's how the Iranians operate. When you give in to the Islamic Republic, when you bow down to them, they kidnap Kaya Soleimani and execute him, just to show us on there. Zahar Kazami, Mehdi Amin, okay? They're murderers. They're psychopathic murderers. And giving these people nuclear weapons is unconscionable. It's absolutely unconscionable. And trying to, racism, morality, Donald Trump, you are literally sanctioning the murder of hundreds of thousands of brown Muslim people. And you don't care, because it won't be white people who kill them. So what do they even matter? And it drives me friggin' crazy. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Okay. On brighter side, I'm just going to give you the brighter side of what's happened in the Middle East very, very, very quickly. Is Donald Trump actually did a great job, and 4 more years of Donald Trump might have actually killed the Iranian threat, but the Iranians are sort of hanging on, praying that Biden would get in, and big win for terrorists, communists, and the Islamic Republic with Joe Biden. But there are some fundamental goods that have come out of the Trump regime that cannot be undone. The Abrahamic Accords, good job on the foresight of Saudi Arabia to say they're going to enter the peace deal after the next president is declared. That way Joe Biden, the media can say, look at Joe Biden, he's also able to make peace, and then sort of create unity, and so the Democrats can at least take some credit for this, because if they can't take credit for this, they're going to try and destroy it. So it was very smart by the Saudis to have some foresight there. And then Joe Biden can, ride the coattails of Trump's accomplishments and can claim to be the peacemaker. Like, listen, I don't care who gets credit for peace in the Middle East. I just want to see peace. But what you're seeing, though, is the United Arab Emirates is actually going off and further and doing what everyone thought China or Iran would do when you make peace with them, is that they're actually moderating, okay? The reason why I'm okay with making relations with the UAE, despite their subpar human rights record, is because the UAE, they openly declare what they want. They want better lives for their people. They want to improve. They want better relations with the world, and they want to come into the 21st century and be a leader in it. Iran, the reason why I don't support relations with them is because they say openly we want to destroy the world and rule it in a caliphate. Okay? And the UAE's put money in its mouth. There's restrictions. They're curtailing Sharia law. They're loosening alcohol restrictions. They're making, they're having kosher food in their things. It's no longer illegal to live with someone, man and woman, before marriage. They're coming into the 21st century. They're actually reforming, right? I am very happy that we'll have Arab leaders, be part of the free world and the coalition for good. And in doing so, with some Arab culture, like I'm fine with Arab culture, right? If it's moderate and you wear your headdress and you bring in your culture and values, like yes, Arabs can be Arab, and that's fine. Like I'm not fine with the genocidal nonsense of the Islamic Republic, right? This is good, and thanks to Donald Trump, you're going to see some pretty rapid, by Middle Eastern standards, rapid cultural modernization inside the Middle East, and that's a very good thing. So all is not lost. Some of the accomplishments of the Trump regime internationally will stay long term, and that's really, really good. Will it be enough to avert the global thermonuclear war that Joe Biden and Barack Obama want? It's not that they want global thermonuclear war that they're just okay with, so they can call themselves a peace deal, like we did an Iran deal. We negotiated with Iran. Stupid. All right, everyone. So with Vice President Biden probably about to be declared president-elect, and the media saying he's now the president, what do we know here? We have the calls for unity, folks. Everyone, we must be united. Now, you can't call for unity as Joe Biden without an apology first. What I will give to Joe Biden, though, is the Democrats basically disqualifying everyone who wasn't Joe Biden. I'm putting Joe Biden in. Joe Biden was the most moderate candidate. Joe Biden did win the Democratic Party because he talked about his ability to work across the aisle. Joe Biden is not a crazy radical historically. Now, will he bring crazy radicals into the administration? Highly likely, okay? Will Ben Rhodes be back in charge of foreign policy? I hope not. But for the most part, he is a centrist Democrat, and that is a good thing. However, in order to call for unity, if the Democrats want to call for unity and say, let's bury the hatchet, let's unite America, that's a good thing, okay? A divided, contentious society is not a good thing, all right? We want to decrease polarization. That's a good thing. However, if you call for unity without first offering an apology as the person in power, that's a disingenuous call for unity, and that's a divisive thing to do, okay? So you can't be divisive while calling for unity. I'll explain. If the Democrats say, hey, we need unity, and we need to reach across the aisle to the Trump supporters, if Trump said, listen, people who supported for Trump and the Republican Party, they might have just different values than us. They are not inherently evil, and for the last 4 years, we might have gone a bit crazy. And you can kind of blame on Trump. Like you could say, the last 4 years of Trump might have driven everyone a little bit crazy, okay? We might have gotten carried away with the things we said. Republicans are not evil, they're our brothers, mea culpa, right? If Joe Biden says, hey, it's been on both sides, we've pushed the division too, we might have gone a bit crazy. Under my administration, I'm gonna work to undermine that, and you know what? Sorry for the role we played in it as a Democratic Party. Because Joe Biden has been better than the others, but Joe Biden also said, I'm the Democratic Party, okay. So you're now assuming the responsibilities of the Democratic Party the last 4 years. In order to legitimately call for unity, Joe Biden must first apologize for the role the left played in the disunity. If you just want to play, we need unity now because Trump was the great divider, Trump was the only reason we were divided, it was just Trump pushing division, it was only Trump, right? At the same time, you were calling everyone who supported Trump racist, sexist, anti-gay, Donald Trump, you did that whole thing, right? You can't just gaslight people and then under these calls for unity, and then have the media say, we asked for unity from the Trump supporters, those evil, stupid, racist Trump supporters. We asked for unity for them, and we asked them to apologize to us, and they didn't. Look how stupid and ugly they are, how horrible they are. Like, is that a real legitimate call for unity? I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think the call for unity overall is a good message. I think it's a good idea. I would like society to be less polarized. But if you're currently the party in power and you want unity, you have to acknowledge that this is a two-way street, that you played a role in it, okay? Donald Trump was not the one who divided America to begin with. America felt more divided after Barack Obama than before him. Joe Biden played a role in that. So if you want to call for unity, if you want to say, oh, kumbaya, let's all get along right now, you got to apologize first for the role you played. Don't have to take 100% responsibility. And part of your apology could say, you can go like, hey, the Trump years might have driven us all a little bit crazy, okay? But it's over, I'm here, and sorry for the role we played in it. We might have been a bit hyperbolic at some point. Trump supporters are not this, this, and this. And then we call them that, it's bad. And then when AOC says, you say, Alexandria, Ilhan Omar, Rashad Tlaib, shut up, you idiot commie terrorists, just shut up, okay? And then it's a legitimate call, and then I'll join and say, you know what, Joe Biden said, hey, mea culpa here, let's give him a chance. Happy to do that. But a call for unity without acknowledging your part in the disunity is a call for disunity. Okay, last segment here. Today is Remembrance Day, November 11th, in Canada, in the Western world. And I have videos on the channel that have talked about the story of the poppy. I shared it today, you know, the story of the poppy. I've shared the story of Vimy Ridge, which I think is very important. So 102 years ago, we honored the armistice that ended the First World War. So I just want to kind of give a general overview of Canada, First World War, Second World War, why the poppy is important, why Canada is a good place, and why we should respect our veterans. And I'll go in, and I'll sort of just do a general overview. And I'm going to sort of count on you either seeing the videos or just giving short explanations. But you know, Canada sort of enters, you know, the theater of war in First World War. I mean, they're part of the Boer War, but really our national identity is formed in World War I. If you watch my Vimy Ridge video, I make the case of why, you know, the birth of Canadian nationalism actually happens at Vimy Ridge. It is the first time, that's April 9th, 1917, that the Canadian Army is actually under Canadian commander, working as a unit. It's this great breakthrough. They break the trench through the trench lines, which hadn't been done before, at the strongest point of the German line. The way they do that is with ingenuity. Arthur Currie, he diversifies the infantry. He creates the creeping barrage. It was the first use of combined arms tactics. And the real great thing about what Arthur Currie did is he reframed the military strategy at the point where the goal of the military and the artillery was actually to protect the infantry. The goal of the troops was no longer to die. And this is a very important thing for Canadian history because the story of the First World War is how callous the generals were. I mean, the French and British generals like Douglas Haig just didn't care for the lives of men. I mean, going into it, war was seen as like a character building exercise. And yes, men die in battle and that's good for the character of the, and it's like, you know, once you got to the First World War and facing constant artillery barrages and machine gun fire, you know, we learned a lot about PTSD or shell shock at the time, and it was a very important thing. But the great innovation by Arthur Currie, copied by Monash, was the fact that he then used the technology of the military to protect the lives of the infantry, and that made the military much more efficient. This is a Canadian invention. And I've told you the stories of, you know, the overwhelming sort of European British attitudes coming in. The Canadians who saw these sort of, you know, just charge at fixed bayonets, charge at machine gun type things, said, that's a bit crazy, okay? That's not efficient, but only a coward would not do it that way. But what the Canadians did is, because they didn't have these European values at the time, is they would wait till nightfall, sneak into the opposing trenches and do night raids. They'd be quieter, they wouldn't face machine gun fires, and they were far, far, far more successful at capturing, you know, arms, intelligence, and strategic positions, right? Then the Europeans eventually caught on and started saying, okay, you know what, it might be dishonorable or not fit our metric, but okay, we'll do it that way. This is kind of why we're like, you know, I'm not like, we're European Canadians and we must protect our Europeanness and our European. We're not Europeans. We're not Europeans. Europeans can be Canadians, but Canada's better than Europe. Okay, screw Europe. We don't need Europe, all right? We were better. We had a different mentality going into Europe, going into the theaters of war than the Europeans. And it was the fact that we had this different mentality that made us so successful. And this is part of the case I made to why Vimy Ridge was sort of the birthplace of our nation, is because we realized, sitting next to these Europeans that we weren't like them, right? We had a different culture. We were a frontiers people. We were more practical. Our birth in the theater of war had to do a lot with like sound ranging, sound spotting, engineering. Like it was a really technological, intelligent country that did this. So our MO has always been like soldiers, warriors for peace, which is a very complicated identity to hold. And this goes to our first actual battle, major engagement, now going back, is in Flanders Field, so sort of the story of the poppy, and we talked about the significance of the poppy. This is the first chemical weapons attack of the war, and it's the Canadian forces who had figured out chlorine gas, urinated on rags to get the ammonia, to neutralize it, and held the line against the Germans in this heroic 48-hour stand without reinforcements. It's one of the greatest last stands in history, except it's actually successful. It's arguably more impressive than the Greeks at Thermopylae. But, going on Flanders Fields, and we had the second patch, and how, the symbol of the poppy being, the light, those who enter the darkness to preserve the light. And I've gone over the symbology in that, and that's on the poppy video. I mean, I don't have the 35 minutes to do everything I want to here, but that's sort of the important thing, okay? But the overall, thing we think of when World War I is trauma, okay? It was a highly traumatizing thing, right? We shell shock, or your PTSD was basically discovered by just how horrific the First World War was. And you have the Canadian identity being actually born as these warriors, right, in the First World War. That's our original identity, is a very, kick-butt type nation, okay? Now, we get to World War II here, and, we sort of get away from, we sort of give into the sort of the kick-butt attitude, but we kind of forget what was underlying it, and this is sort of the Dieppe disaster, right? So the Dieppe thing is sort of just the Canadians, the Canadians did really, really well, let's just throw them against the Atlantic Wall like we did against the trench lines at Vimy Ridge, and they'll do it, right? We'll just do it on gusto. And then that's never been the Canadian way, just doing on gusto, right? If you look at Vimy Ridge was meticulously planned. There was strategy, there was tactics, there was innovation there, okay? And just run and charge. We kind of got a bit European at Dieppe, and we got slaughtered because of it. So we took our, humble pie. You get the redemption at Juno Beach. The story of the Canadians taking Juno Beach. They're the only ones to actually capture that. Fully capture their objectives and on pace to actually push through and make all the breakthroughs on that specific day. That's the sort of redemption of the warrior narrative. But the real important thing, I think, for the Canadians is the Canadian identity was born in these brutal, horrific wars. You had World War I, you had Dieppe. The real symbol of the Canadian military and what we should remember, and sort of one of the more important things is when we get to the story of the liberation of the Netherlands. So, and we're losing this, and it's a COVID year and all that, but one of the most miraculous things, or one of the most, is the fact that you have a foreign military, and for years since, there's a Canadian military parade that goes through the Netherlands, right? A foreign army will march through the Netherlands to cheers of the people, right? Very rarely do people cheer on a foreign army that comes back to their shores. And the reason that they do this is the Canadian military essentially made a choice. They didn't have to go and liberate the Netherlands from Nazi occupation. They could have left the Netherlands for a couple months. They could have taken the easy route through Belgium, but it was the Canadian forces who, and we lost 13,000 men doing this, who saw what the Nazis were doing to the Dutch people. They were on the Third Reich was the last legs. They had taken all their food. They were starving out the Dutch people. Hundreds of thousands would have died had the Canadians not made the choice to take the long route, go through the Nazis in the Netherlands, liberate them before moving on to Germany. That was a decision made by the Canadians, who had every opportunity not to do so, who could have said, you know what, we took our licks in the First World War. The Canadian spirit is those who took a beating in the First World War, took the traumas of Dieppe, and opted to do the right thing, right? And that's what we really should remember in the Canadian people. Great, I mean, the way we perform in the Netherlands, Lebanon, the Suez Canal crisis, there's a lot to be proud of in our Canadian military, and I hope we can all remember at this Remembrance Day, and that's why we have the moment of silence. And that's what I'd like everyone to sort of think about times today. So thank you so much for being here. That's the show. You know what to do. Click like, follow, every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. right here. I'm me, you're you. Good night.